You're listening to Creatives Prevail, unraveling the stories of creative professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creatives Prevail. I'm your host, Mike Zimmerlich, and this is a discussion on the Imagination Skyway podcast where myself and host Matthew Krul discuss our experience filming an interview on the Walt Disney Studios Lot. Not only is this a behind-the-scenes chat on filming a podcast interview on site, but this is also a definite listen for any Disney fan as we also got to tour Walt's office. Make sure to check out the full interview with Leslie Iwerks, director of Disneyland Handcrafted, and many other incredible episodes on the Imagination Skyway podcast. Let's get into it.
Yesterday was really the opportunity of a lifetime, which I said 6 months ago when I went to Walt Disney Imagineering, and perhaps that's one that is less commonly visited. But yesterday, you will hear, if you haven't already, I had this incredible opportunity to interview Leslie Iwerks at the Walt Disney Studios Lot in Burbank, California. This is the studio lot, the famous one that Walt Disney constructed after and from the proceeds of Snow White. And it's the location of Walt Disney's headquarters ever since. And I was lucky not to only go there, but to have a close family member, friend, and content support who you all know from previous episodes of the show. And that's my cousin Mike. And Mike's here with me. So, hey, Mike.
Hi. I really appreciate the introduction. I feel so humbled by that because, I mean, this is just as much of an honor for me to be able to tag along with these amazing events with you.
You are a part of the Imagination Skyway crew, which is a very small group, and you are really the person who helps make magic with my content when you come with me to the park. So if you see me in the shot, it's 95% of the time because of Mike being there and providing content support and pushing my boundaries and providing recommendations, suggestions, ideas. Many of them I shoot down, but others we try. And every time we try something that you recommend ends up being fantastic. So,
well, I think about it this way too, right? Is that's what makes a team.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a back and forth as far as a collaboration, not only a collaboration of ideas, but I want to say almost like an understanding. I don't even want to say a compromise because I don't think compromise is the right word. I think it's more like an understanding. It's like you are the Walt you are the Walt and I'm the Roy, essentially, in many ways, where you are the creative vision, but also know where you want to go with that vision. And I'm the one who helps you make it happen. And sometimes that also means like, oh, how far can we take this? I guess that's the part, a little bit of Walt and me in that part of it. But how far we can take this, but also the same token as far as making sure that you ultimately are proud of what you want to get out of it, whatever that ends up being.
Yeah. Well, in either case, I am grateful you were able to join me for this, and I want to take some time to reflect on our experience and share that with the listeners, because I know not everybody will get the chance to visit the Walt Disney Studios Lot. As I said, it's a little easier to do than to go to Walt Disney Imagineering because they do occasional tours of the Walt Disney Studio Lot. While we were there, we did see tour groups. There were visitor passes, and there were clearly fans of Disney that were going about the lot and enjoying a guided tour of the campus. And in the case of those of you listening, it's certainly not an impossibility to go to the Walt Disney Studios Lot and to see it. But I think our circumstances and some of the opportunities we had, thanks to Disney Parks and thanks to Leslie Iwerks herself and her company, Iwerks & Co., we were given some really incredible, special privileges that not everybody is going to get the chance to get. So let's start here. We arrived at the gate, and the entrance we were told to go to was on Alameda Avenue, right at the Team Disney building. And if you're not familiar with that one, you will probably recognize its description. It is the one that is it has the seven dwarves on the roof. It's got a almost like a Pantheon style roof to it with the triangular rooftop, and it's got like red brick and glass windows, and then again those carvings of the seven dwarves, and it's in front of or behind, depending on where you're looking. It's adjacent to Legends Plaza, which is the location where you have another version of the partner statue, which is Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse, and the Sharing the Magic statue, which is Roy Disney and Minnie Mouse on a park bench. And it is truly where they have, it's called Legends Plaza because I should take out the pamphlet that I have. I mean, there are hundreds of legends.
There must be.
And I'm actually looking. There's definitely over 100 legends here because they're alphabetized. Like that's how extensive this is. There's like a section for people starting with the last name starting with the letter A, and then with letter B and letter C. And just looking at the beginning of the list, there's people like Julie Andrews, Exitencio, Buddy Baker, Jodie Benson. It's incredible to just see all the legends that are there in Legends Plaza. Anyway, how did you feel going through the gates onto the lot? That's where I'm describing the entrance for you, but how did it feel for you to go through the gates of this lot?
I'm going to tell a quick story.
Okay.
So when I moved to Los Angeles, this was back in 2011. I was only here for about a year, but I would travel back and forth from Phoenix all the time because that's where my family is. And if you are familiar with the LA area at all in some form or fashion, you'll know the 134, which is on the northern part that goes right past Burbank. And from the 134, especially when you're going westbound, if you look to your right at a certain point, you go past the Walt Disney Lot, Studio Lot. And there's a big sign there that says animation. And every time I go down that road and I see that sign, I think to myself, wouldn't it be amazing one day if I can actually go onto that lot? And now, 14 years later, I can finally say that I did actually get a chance to go to that lot. So that's what it meant to me by actually going to the entrance and then actually allowing us to go through that entrance and essentially park inside the studio lot itself.
Yeah, they definitely rolled out the red carpet for us, which was far more than I would expect, and I was very grateful for that. It helped to make a very stress-free arrival and to get my head in the right place. And it was great that they also let us get there early so that we could walk around, get a feel for the setup, and reflect on where we were. And how fitting was it to be interviewing a legend at or in Legends Plaza? Leslie wasn't there when we got there. We again showed up early and we were walking around, getting our heads in the game. I was thinking about the questions I had prepared for Leslie, thinking through my notes if there was anything else that I wanted to ask her. And as always, my notes are guidelines. I tend to stray from those notes. I skip questions. I add questions in. I phrase things differently, and it goes by the conversation. And so taking the time to reflect on all of that as we're sort of walking by the Frank Lloyd Wright building, which is also at the front entrance, where there are. And the other thing that was interesting about this is that this is not just a museum. This is not a replica. It's not like going to Disney's Hollywood Studios where you feel like this is what it must be like to be on a lot or to be working in Hollywood. But this lot is a working lot. So there were cast members going about their day. I was thinking about what projects they must be working on. I was thinking that in these buildings, they're working on Hex and Frozen 3, and there are heads in the Marvel section of this studio lot right now getting ready for Avengers Doomsday, and more than that, planning what comes after Avengers Doomsday. They are thinking about how Pixar fits into this equation, and Pixar, of course, has other headquarters, but I was thinking like Bob Iger could be sitting up in his office in this Team Disney building right now, having an important meeting about the future of Disneyland or about what is coming to Walt Disney World. And especially because we were at pretty much the first business day of the year, right? It was January 2nd was the first business day of the year, but that was a Friday, and I'm sure everybody was still maybe, just coming back from holiday break. Maybe they were still off. So really January 5th, this Monday, January 5th, was the first true business day where meetings were happening, planning was happening, and you got that feeling of this buzzing hive as you were in there, and it made me optimistic. And especially being on this campus and feeling the history, knowing that Walt was working on this campus, Walt was dreaming on this campus, and now that legacy continues. There have been new buildings that have been added. The Team Disney building was not there during Walt's time. That was added during Michael Eisner's time. But you still get that sense of that legacy continuing forward. So I love that about it.
Me too. I'm curious, while you were there and we were soaking all of this in, you were mentally preparing for this interview. Did you feel, I'm sure people are always like, I can't imagine being in that position for this big interview that you're about to do, and how you're feeling ahead of time, trying to prepare for it and all the thoughts that go through your mind. So were you nervous at all?
Yes. Nervous is certainly the case. I think it's a combination. So it's not anxiety, right? It's not a feeling of I'm not going to be able to do this. There's no doubt. It's just excitement and jitters of it's like it almost feels very similar to because I do my homework. So it feels for me like the old days of being in school and going for a final and knowing that I had spent weeks preparing for it, and I knew everything was going to be okay, but thinking I don't know what questions are going to be asked. It's the reverse case. Now I'm asking the questions, but I don't know what answers are going to be given back to me, or how she's going to respond, or how long the responses are going to be. So there's definitely an element of surprise, and that's what makes it nerve-wracking. Is I need to know how to adapt to various situations depending on how the interview is going, thinking about how to keep my guest comfortable and to elicit the responses I'm looking for, to dive deeper, to try to uncover things that maybe she hasn't thought about before, because I don't want her to just provide the scripted responses that she's used to, but to think about questions in ways that she hasn't thought about them before, or to unveil some nugget of wisdom or information that maybe we haven't heard before. So getting myself into that state, it's like getting ready for a final exam, and that's how it feels for me. But again, a final exam that you've studied for, like you're going to do well. So that's the difference, I think, for anyone listening. If you didn't study for that final, it's a different level of nerve-wracking feeling than you've studied for it, you feel prepared for it, you know the information, but it's just about the execution and adapting to the surprises that happen along the way. So I try very hard not to let that get to me, because I also view this as my responsibility to everyone listening to put my best foot forward. So it gives me inspiration to know this is not about me. It's about the people listening on the other end and giving them a great experience. So I need to be on my game as much as possible. And everything that goes into preparing for that, getting a good night's sleep, eating right, staying in the right state of mind, that sort of prep work goes into big moments like this.
I think it's important that you mentioned all those things, because it's about taking the time. And I'm not talking about just the doing your homework and research, but as you mentioned, getting good night's sleep, eating right. But also on top of that too, we made sure we got there early so we didn't have to rush to get everything set up. We were not only able to make sure that we were there with plenty of time to spare to get everything set up, but we had plenty of time to roam and to soak it all in and to enjoy the presence of being there without feeling rushed at all. And I feel that also helps when it comes to, especially like an interview like this, is just kind of getting yourself mellowed out and knowing confidently that you know what question to ask, how to adapt, and so forth. But it's like, especially in LA, but it's just a good mantra. And in general is you are on time when you are early. And we made sure that we were early in arriving.
Yes. Yes, it's definitely the case. I always live by that philosophy as well. I'm thinking of this as, this was a good sort of preamble to the conversation. I'm thinking of two major components of the conversation. And the first one I probably think is going to be a little bit shorter, which is talking about the interview itself, and then talking about our experience wandering the lot, which is going to include the tour that we were given of Walt Disney's office, which the archives said is about 95 to 98% exactly the way that Walt left it, which is really something. It was really something to go and see. And let's go back to the interview. So when it was time, we went over, got everything set up. Mike was busy, a lot busier than I was. I was chatting with Leslie, and Mike was getting everything set up for us. And, I'm going to let the interview speak for itself, I think, but I'll turn it over to you, Mike, because you were right there watching the entire thing. So what was it like for you to be... you weren't just watching. You were. I was
mostly hoping that nothing was going to break during the interview.
We had backups.
We had backups upon backups upon backups, and the entire time I'm like, please don't everything go well.
I think there was more pressure on you than on me.
I was intently looking at every single device. Not only intently looking at every single device, make sure it's working, but I don't know if you noticed it, I kept my hands in my pockets, so I did not, there's no way I was going to touch anything.
No offense, I was not looking at you at all.
I know.
I was making full eye contact and giving Leslie 100%
you were focused on
of
the
my
interview,
attention.
but that was the whole point. I want to make sure that you weren't worried about anything tech related at all, so you can focus on just the interview alone.
I saw the movement in my peripherals. I knew you were monitoring and looking, but I tried so hard not to look at you.
Yeah,
I was just wanting to focus.
I also tried to make
Leslie.
my movement to a minimum because of that reason. I think so anytime something would come up, I would just be nothing would came up, but I was just making sure as I was looking over, okay, is everything fine? Okay, cool. I'm gonna go back in my corner, be very quiet, and just stay right there, and just eagle eye it and just make sure that everything was working properly. But I would say outside of that, I mean, what can I say? You do such an incredible job. And I'm saying this not only because of being involved in this project,
because I have a scripted response in front of you saying,
right? Yeah. See,
don't go off script, Mike.
Right here in front. So anyway, as a fellow podcaster, I can attribute towards how challenging it is to do this type of work. And you did such a phenomenal job of making sure that not only did you deliver the question so eloquently, but just having a conversation with Leslie and going back and forth, and the professionalism of how you did it it was truly remarkable. I mean, once you look at me like, are we recording? I'm like, yes, we are. And you just went straight into it. No problems at all. And yeah, I mean, ironically, I knew I was going to listen to it afterwards, so I wasn't really paying attention to the conversation itself. I was just really adamant at making sure that everything was working, and more intently listen to the conversation afterwards, because the moment is the most important part. Afterwards, I can listen to more about what it was. But I did kind of tune in on a couple of different things and so forth. And again, I just thought it was great. And the weather, for the most part, cooperated because it was outside.
It was perfect. It was really beautiful to be in California. You don't have to worry about the elements, really. It rained the days before we got here, but it was sunny and partially overcast. The sun did hit my eyes. I was really not sitting in the best spot, but I just struggled through it as best as I could and made it look. If you watch the video, you might see me squinting when the sun is literally beaming on my eyes from just the perfect angle. Just my look just up to the top right of my vision was just literally in my face. But I tried so hard to just push through that.
I also want to do a quick shout out to the entire Disney team they were so accommodating to both of us and so friendly and getting everything arranged. In fact, even Leslie was so nice. She even made a suggestion of moving
Yeah,
Like,
she's like, why
reposition-
don't we sit this way? She's like, what do you think? I'm like, I'm going to listen to the filmmaker. Like, whatever you think is best, Leslie, that's exactly what we're going to do.
And of course, she was right. It was.
She was.
It looked so amazing.
Yeah, who am I to argue? No, are you kidding me, Leslie? Let's sit this way.
No,
I know
prefer
best.
I prefer this way, this particular angle.
She could have told me she wanted to sit in the cafeteria. I really don't care. Whatever you want to do, it's fine.
But yeah, no, they were so nice and so great to us from start to finish. I didn't feel that we were rushed during the process at all. In fact, I want to be respectful to them, make sure that we're there, not a problem, on time, got ourselves finished on the time that we were expected to, and then like that's the thing about I've always learned about doing this over the years is don't be the problem.
No. I don't know if you noticed, I actually had I have a pretty good sense of time. I looked at my watch once just to gauge it, but then I stopped about 30 to 45 seconds before our scheduled end time. So it was really perfect. I looked, I'm like, yes, all right, I just got it.
And I think the thing is too, is that for the most part, I mean, again, it depends upon the situation, but most of the time they'll always will have some sort of buffer because they know these type of things will go over, but that's not the point. The point is that you paid attention to that. And that's what matters even more than the fact that you went under time. It's the fact that you were aware of that and made sure that you were done, even if it didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's that level of detail that invites you to come back to other things in the future.
Well, I hope so. And I want to, before, I don't want to spend too much time on the interview, but I was asked this question and I was thinking about it, and it dawned on me that, well, let me just phrase the question first. So it was more of a statement that said, you must be so proud of yourself. And I thought about it, and then my answer was no. And I was thinking about why. And I realized it was because I don't really get a sense of pride in myself. I feel pride for others. Like I'm seriously proud of my daughters when they do something wonderful. I'm proud of my wife when she accomplishes something amazing. But when I'm given a chance like this, the main emotion that floats to the top is actually gratitude. It's not pride. And so I was incredibly grateful, humbled by this opportunity. Certainly pride is not the word I would use. And I see every opportunity like this as a gift, not something that is deserving. I never feel like it's something that I've earned. I never feel like it's something that I deserve in any way. Never, like truly never. It does not cross my mind. The main thing is, wow, I'm so grateful I have this opportunity and I better deliver and make the most of it. And that's what is filled with that. That's what fuels me more than anything else. So I was incredible. Bottom line is I was feeling this whole time and still now an enormous amount of gratitude to have this opportunity and not expecting anything like this to happen again.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
So let's talk about, because I don't want to make this about me, and I don't want to make
me.
And I don't want to make this about the interview itself, because you should go and listen to it if you haven't yet. I do want to make this about our experience on the lot. I do want to make this about the history of the lot itself. So just a quick recap again. This was not the original location for the Disney Brothers Studios. The main lot where they did a lot of the work for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, for instance, was over at the Hyperion lot. And then they eventually made their way over to this new, with the proceeds from Snow White, the incredible success that it was, Walt built this brand new campus, and he wanted to make it perfect for his animators. And we learned that on our little tour, that if you look at the lot from a satellite view or an overall, or an aerial view, it's not in line with the rest of Burbank. And that's because everything is focused around the animation building, which we got the chance to visit. It is I'm going to call it original. It wasn't the original Disney animation building, but it's the original animation building on this campus. We learned that the first film they shot beginning to end on this campus was Dumbo. and the last one in the building from beginning to end was The Great Mouse Detective, because they have a new animation building since then. But Walt wanted it to be perfect for his animators, so it was designed in a way that his animators didn't have to worry about the outside world, they didn't have to worry about the elements, and also the building perfectly faces north, which was intentional for sunlight exposure for the animators, for their process for animating, which didn't go too much into the physics behind that, but apparently it was really important to Walt that the animators had a perfect amount of light for what they were doing. So the building itself has it's north, south, east, and west, but it's perfectly aligned with north, south, east, and west, whereas the rest of Burbank is kind of skewed a little bit. So when you enter into the lot, there's an angle to all the buildings and the campus for that reason. And then everything around it was built to be perpendicular to the animation building. But we got to walk around the lot. At the lot itself, the outdoor component is not like there's any behind the scenes things happening. All that's happening behind closed doors. And like I said, they do tours of the Walt Disney Studios lot. But it was great to get to walk around to see it. The animation building looked like it was built in the 40s. You could tell it wasn't touched much. Even inside, it's been, of course, repainted. It's been updated. There's modern lighting. But the bone structure of it felt like it was built in the 40s.
It's also the smell too.
The smell too, yes. It had that
I was
very
going to talk to you
school,
about that. It had the old school. Like I remember like going into the building going, oh, this has that old like East Coast kind of smell to it.
Yes, where the buildings are older.
Where the buildings are older.
It felt like almost like a school would smell and where we grew up, because that's about the time that some of the schools we went to were constructed. It was around that era. So it did have a very similar smell to that. But yeah, it has so much history to it, and going by the sign for all the different streets that are on the lot, which by the way are like Mickey Way and Mickey Avenue. Sorry, not Mickey Way. There's Mickey Avenue. There's Dopey Way. I have to go back and remember all the names of the streets, but it's I don't think we have. I have it.
I do.
You
I
do?
have a picture of it. Hang on. See, I've become prepared. That's why you have me.
But they have Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Goofy, Dopey. I forgot if they're Avenue or Drive or.
So you're talking about Pluto's Corner, correct?
Yes, on Pluto's Corner, where they have the name.
Corner.
They have the sign, the famous sign up on Pluto's Corner.
So it's Dopey Drive, Mickey Avenue, and actually those are the only two streets. That's the cross streets.
Well, because on the cross streets, yes.
Yeah, that's on the cross streets. But then also has signs for animation, and in between, special effects, multiplane, ink and paint, and then the layout department.
Yeah,
those are all the signs.
And there's also the studio is designed for tours as well, as being a working backlot. So you would see, we walked past in the Frank Lloyd Wright building, they had the multiplane camera there for us to look on display. And it was labeled. It was meant for people to learn about the multiplane camera and understand how it impacted animation at Disney and then beyond Disney. And we also got the chance to visit the company store. Again, anyone's welcome who's on the lot to go and purchase some merchandise, which we definitely purchased some merchandise. I bought one thing for myself, which was a pen. And then I got some gifts for the girls.
I got a couple things too. I did get myself one of the writing pads. It was just really, really nice. And I do like writing pads. And that's where I like to write down my most inspired ideas, if you will, or just philosophies and things like that too. And so especially something that special like that, I wanted that was for me. And then definitely got a few other things along the way too.
Yeah. Other than Walt's office, did you have any other feelings or thoughts as you were walking around the lot?
It was a very serene experience. It was surprisingly quiet.
Yes,
for
it was.
Such an active lot.
Yeah.
I did notice that. I was walking through there with a sense of calmness. And kind of what we were talking about before, I mean, especially the facades of the buildings themselves really haven't changed much, if not at all, since it was originally built. So you really do feel like you're walking on the original grounds that Walt Disney himself built. And that was something that was very, very special. was just, you just see people, and you just see people just walking around, going about their day and so forth. But it felt like walking in a park.
It did. It was a campus.
It's a campus, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. If you were on a college campus, I felt the same way as it being on a college campus, except this is making some of the the films that we know and love.
Yeah,
over the decades,
much more special.
But
than a college
I like the idea of comparing it to college campus. It did very much feel like a college campus.
Yes, absolutely. Now we should probably talk about the Walt's office. This is not some place that people go. If you're doing a tour of the Walt Disney Studios lot, you're not going to get to see Walt's office. So I just want to make that clear that this is a special invitation, and in this case was an extraordinary privilege. There were only 5 of us that were on this tour, and our tour guide was, huge shout out to Drew from the Walt Disney Archives team. He has an incredibly eloquent way of touring us through the building itself, describing and storytelling about Walt, and he really made it feel like we were back in 1964, 1965, and we were invited into Walt's office to meet with Walt. And the way he painted the story and described circumstances and examples was very palpable. And it was, the eerie thing about it to me was we were, as you mentioned, it was actually at the end of the day. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon. So it was definitely on the quieter side of the day, and the sun was going down. And we're going through these hallways in the original animation building towards Walt's office on the 3rd floor. And it was a very quiet hallway. There wasn't a lot happening. And then when you turn the corner to Walt's suites, which is barricaded by these very secure sets of doors, not in an imposing or an intimidating way, but it just, you could tell that this is an important place as you round that corner. And it was eerie in a way. In some ways sad. Like it was very melancholy. I was feeling this almost sadness for losing the fact that Walt's presence was lost so soon, and also this feeling of humility for the opportunity to go and experience it and to get to walk through this space, and a great deal of respect and reverence and privilege is really the main word I can use to describe the feeling even before I walked in. And it was a very moving experience to get to walk through this space. And I think all of us that were there were, I felt grateful that we were trusted to go through this space. I felt it was important to live up to that trust, of course. So, all of us, is not just the trust of being in that space, but also the respect for Walt himself, I think, is what I felt when I was in there. So I didn't want to touch, we're not supposed to touch anything, but I didn't even want to touch anything. I just wanted to, because I didn't even feel like I should be stepping on the carpet, right? I just felt like I shouldn't be there. But I was really privileged to have the chance to be there. And then, the layout of his office is really interesting because you have they provided an example of what an animator's room would look like. Certainly Walt didn't work in there by the time he was in that animation building. He was long past doing animation. And they had a couple of secretaries' spaces. So they had one at the entryway, then they had one right adjacent to the entrance to one of Walt's 2 office spaces, which the first one Drew described as a space where if you were a foreign dignitary or a VIP of sorts, that would be the space he would welcome you into. And then he had beyond that his own office, which was really more of a working office. So if you were planning the Florida project with him, you might look at the blueprints on his desk in that office. And then he had a separate room where he would unwind at the end of the day, which is where he would have his 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 beverage at the end of the day. He would have it actually had like it had a sink. We didn't get to see this, but he described that they had previously a shower, a sink, and a toilet there, and even a twin-size bed if he needed to stay overnight. But Drew said that was extraordinarily rare for him to actually stay overnight, and it's kind of set up that way as almost a circular flow as you're going around these different spaces. And there was also even a kitchenette in his office, which was pretty cool. And they had it stocked with the different items he might have in his cabinet, which I got a picture of. So V8 vegetable juice, which he loved, and he loved to drink room temperature. There was bird's eye frozen green peas. They also had green giant niblets, fresh corn, basically cans of fresh corn, Spam, Hormel, flavor sealed chili con carne, because many of us know he loves chili, and Gebhardt's Eagle chili with beans, and several boxes of Jell-O. There was lime flavor, orange flavor, lemon flavor. So it was interesting to get to see that too. They have pictures of Walt in there. But other than that, it's set up exactly where everything. Drew even said that the dignitary room, like that office, there was this massive bookshelf. It took up an entire wall, and there were the exact same books in the exact same order, in the exact same position, even if it was tilted on its side or leaned in one way as Walt left it. So, then he said that, a few things they were not able to replace, or that they didn't have the originals of, but that 95 to 98% of this was the exact items, the exact furniture, the exact things, the exact bags, like everything that Walt left behind as if he had just left that office. So I described it, but how did it feel for you, Mike, to walk through this space? Walt Disney's office.
Well, I think I couldn't say it better than you did. I mean, it was very serene just being there. I think I'll add to what you just said that I felt very inspired just being there. And I think that was the whole point, is taking essentially a snapshot of time of what that office looked like when it was active and when it was busy and when creative ideas were happening. And it just reminded me of how meaningful that is and why I love doing what I do. I think that was my own self-reflection about being there, and also the honor, because of how rare that is, that they do invite people to Walt's office and to tour around, and how truly grateful it was to be able to be given that opportunity. And it was funny because we were talking afterwards about how we felt a little bad about not asking questions, but I think the whole point of it was for us to just soak in as much as humanly possible for the time that we had in there, and just witness what this was like.
I'm thinking about it now, and I'm glad we're doing this a day later. Like, we thought about doing it that night when we got back, but I'm like, we're both exhausted. We're emotionally drained from the day. Like, how can we? How can I couldn't form sentences.
It was a long day.
It was a long day. But this is gonna sound odd to some people, I think. But I interviewed AJ Wolf, love AJ, about her book Disney Adults, and I read her book, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. She got an awesome book. But if you actually read it actually listened to it cover to cover, because she narrates her own book, and I love AJ's voice. But the analogy that she uses in her book that I also asked her about in the interview was the idea that in some cases, Disney fandom is equivalent to a religion, and it has a lot of overlapping qualities. I'm Catholic, and it definitely has a lot of the certain customs, certain rituals. It's very ritualistic. It's it's Leslie even brought it up in our interview. If you go back and listen, she's like, what place do people go week after week? And she even said it herself. She's like, well, as opposed to church, but that is the closest equivalent. And to me, this would have been, and again, I apologize to, because this is going to sound odd, but I'm truly just providing an analogy. As a Catholic, I'm just equating it. It would be like going to where Jesus lived, or, where he worked. I mean, he wasn't like the same career as like Walt Disney. And again, I'm providing just an analogy to describe how I felt like I almost shouldn't be there. Like I shouldn't touch anything. I'm not there to even ask questions, but to pay homage to someone I deeply respect and who's shaped my life in so many different ways. And that's also why I feel like I felt this sense of sadness, that knowing how his life ended and the fact that this is the way it was, like that day, when he left everything behind and he never came back. So it's a celebration of everything that he accomplished. It's a tribute to him. It's a tribute to the company that he built. But as a Disney fan, it fills you with so many emotions that are just very hard to describe. And I was thinking, Richard Sherman's piano is in there. And that's the piano that and we learned that Richard was the last person given permission to play. No one's going to ever be able to play on that piano. And I hope it should be that way. But, I was looking out the window that Walt would be looking out when Richard was playing Feed the Birds for him. That was the window that he was looking out of at the tower in the distance, and Roy's office on the opposing corridor, a floor below. And it filled me with so many emotions. And all of us in there were so quiet and just soaking it all in. And you could feel the energy. You could feel, I just was like, how am I in this office right now, standing in the position or close to the position where Walt was, looking out the window with Richard Sherman playing this piano for him, right? I'm getting emotional thinking about it. It gave me chills as I was just talking about it. It's not something that everyone's going to get to experience. And I felt very humbled, very privileged, again, to be there. So I don't know what else to say.
I do want to do a quick shout out to Drew on a couple of things. One is I really appreciated when he talked about, because one of us on the tour asked him about, how long he's been working in the company for, and he started out flipping burgers.
Yes, at Carnation Cafe in Disneyland. Yes.
Yeah. And so he went up.
He worked in entertainment. He worked, but he said he ended up doing tours. He loves doing the tours on the lot.
Exactly. And I think that just goes to show the testament of the company over time. And we've heard this time and time again of these cast members who've been around for so long and have had so many roles within the company and choose to continue to be there and to be in a place that they truly enjoy being in and to love being a part of. And I definitely felt that out of Drew. He loved what he did. He loved being a part of the Walt Disney Company. And that's something that I really appreciate too, coming from someone. He didn't have to be there. He could just be like, here's Walt's office, what I mean? But he, like you said before, he made you feel like you were there at that point in time. And it just shows how much it meant to him. Even he mentioned, like, he as he's talking about being in Walt's office and the different things, even he, as many times as he's done this, will still get teary-eyed.
Yes.
At all this time.
Yes. And I will say that I know I mentioned that it's not common to be able to visit Walt's office, but occasionally opportunities do arise. And if you are a D23 member and you're going to be in the Burbank area, there are tickets on sale to do this for January, February, and March 2026. It is the official Walt Disney Studios walking tour presented by D23. It's in celebration of the 85th anniversary of the Walt Disney Studios Lot. It's a 2.5-hour walking tour, and you get the opportunity to visit Walt's historic office suite, preserved as it was during his time, special stop at the Walt Disney Archives, home to decades of Disney treasures, and a stroll through Legends Plaza, honoring the visionaries who shaped Disney history. And I will provide a link to that in the description of this episode, but if you can make it out, it is considered, the Walt Disney Archives official VIP studio tour. So I think that speaks for itself. I love D23 events, and this is, you might hear this too late. I hope you don't. But again, January, I'm looking now, there are dates and times available. The cost of this, I think, varies. I'm trying to see if it's listed in the notes. I can't find it. But definitely you have to be 18 or older to participate. And guests under 13 are not going to have access to the, so let me take that back. Sorry. There's a new, this is about a new kind of studio tour. There's a digital tour companion that's launching in 2026. So that's the thing that you cannot be 13 or older to attend. But before I misspeak on any of the terms, because there's a lot in here and I'm just reading through it quickly, I will link it to you all in the description of this episode. So if you're going to be in the area and you want to feel that history, definitely check it out as well. Any other thoughts, Mike, before we wrap up?
Again, just that I am immensely grateful for having this
Likewise.
opportunity. So, that's really, I can say, is just to sum it all up. You said it best. It's just gratitude.
Yeah.
It's just gratitude.
Thanks again to Disney Parks. Thanks to Leslie herself. Check out my interview with her if you haven't yet, and definitely be sure to check out her documentary, Disneyland Handcrafted. It's available January 22nd on Disney Plus and Disney YouTube. So thanks all for listening. Let me know if you have any questions, and hope you all enjoyed this experience.